pallet composter for your backyard. This is a real session for I decided to put this in our list of webinars just because I think that the more you get into whether it's vegetable gardening or perennial gardening, the more you get into developing your property for gardens rather than just lawns and hardscapes, the more you need to deal with the vegetative material that comes with that pursuit. So I really like these pallet composters. We have built two composter complexes, and they work really, really well, particularly if you have a lot of vegetative material. So if you live in an area with a lot of trees or you have a large vegetable garden, these things really help not just for building fertility that you right on your own property that you can use yourself, but also for storage. They're really great for storing all of those things that you need as a grower, whether it's amendments and mulch or storing, say, city compost that they give away for free a couple times a year, but still needs to be composted down. So I really like these things. I like that it's a reusable resource, that it is a way of using things that are available to you for free for the most part. And they really do help if you are an active gardener. So let's in order to build one in your backyard, there's several things that you have to decide. Number one is it suitable for you? You need to have a location that's big enough. Pallets are about 3.5 feet wide. So if you're going to put one in your yard, you generally need more than one composter container or an area. So you'll need to build at least a dual in order for it to function properly. You need to prepare your site. I'll offer a basic materials and tools list, but because it's a renewable activity, because it's something that you build for yourself using things that you have on hand, hopefully, you kind of just need to get your materials and tools gathered so that they'll work for you. The assembly is really quite easy. And then there's a few optional items that you might want to put on there, and how to use it appropriately in the landscape. So this is a video that I took of our original compost complex. Right here, what you're looking at is a new pile. This was hot composting, which is a little bit different than urban composting, but that's one that has just been built and set together with the thermometer in it. This section of the composter is finished compost. It's ready to go in the ground. And then the next one is the composter that's open to fresh food waste and garden waste. And the reason I wanted to show you that is so that you can kind of get a scope of the size and depth of these things, and also so that you understand that you do need to have more than one compartment in order to have a constantly growing source of compost. You can't add fresh compostable materials to a composting pile, or it'll never break down appropriately. So, is it right for you? Do you have the ability to transport the pallets to your house? Do you have access to tools and supplies? You can put the thing together with a screwdriver. It'll take you a while, and a saw. So it's nice to have the power tools and somebody who knows how to use them. Do you have enough organic materials to support a large composter like this? And a lot of people don't. But the bigger your garden gets, the more actual gardening that you do, the more you need composting. That's why these things are nice. And this is a really important one. Do you want to spend the time doing the physical work that a composter like this requires? Because compost does require turning, it does require amendments, it does require some constant, usually weekly, attendance, so that it doesn't so that it breaks down appropriately and doesn't smell, particularly in the heat of the summer? And are you growing food? Because the what you're composting is different if you're growing food versus if you're just trying to support perennial beds and trees. So, best practices for choosing your location would be a level area, and that's because of moisture. You want to make sure that the moisture settles right through the compost and doesn't kind of veer off. You want it to be as far from your house as possible because even if you do it the best way possible, there will be some times, particularly in the heat of the day, at the end of July, beginning of August, when things are really hot, that things can get kind of smelly, and also as far from your neighbor's house as possible. So don't be putting it right in between houses or right underneath their window because they won't appreciate it. You want it to have some accessibility to water, particularly if we have a drought year. Compost needs moisture to break down, and you want it to be wheelbarrow accessible because you're going to need to transport all of that great compost that you make. So when you're preparing the site, basically it's beneficial, especially in Lethbridge, and you'll see from the coming pictures that it depends on where you live on how you set up your compost. But here in Lethbridge, it's beneficial to be right on the ground. And so it's nice to remove your turf. As I said, it's best to have at least 2 compartments. If you have room for 3 and the pallets to support it, and the extra wood to build it up to 3 compartments, then do 3 because, like I say, they're great for storage, for storing bales of soil and mulch and compost and your tools. They're great for the winter. Also, putting your composter against a fence adds stability. The wind around here is ferocious, as you all know. So if you want to make sure that it has some longevity and doesn't get pushed around too much in those gale force winds, always putting it against a secure structure is nice. And it doesn't matter if you have it in the sun or the shade. It's probably best to save the sunny areas if you wanted to grow a vegetable garden, and decrease the amount of heat that is going on to those composters. So let's look at some of the pallet composters that have encouraged me to build composters and gone with the design that I now have. Now this is your bare bones. This is literally just four pallets put together. And you might laugh, but what's funny about this is that it's actually great storage for what it's doing here, and that's leaves. So if you live downtown, you live in an area that has really big trees and growing trees, and you're getting a lot of leaf matter. I've seen places around town that have bags and bags and bags of leaves that are going to the dump and being picked up by the city. That is an amazing growth resource, those leaves. They will break down. They lose most of their volume as they break down. But the problem is keeping them in one place when we have wind. So this will actually work for you. If this is the most you can do, it will work if you have it in a back corner somewhere. And the leaves will stay in there because it protects them from wind. They're open to the air. The only thing you have to think about is perhaps you might want to water down during our dry spells in the winter like we just had. You can even just use kitchen wastewater, but to keep that leaf litter breaking down. But this is kind of the basis of where we can go, or where you start when you're building pallet composters. This one here is one step up from what we just saw, and it's got the removable wall on the one side with the slats where you have the slats coming in, and you can take them halfway up or depending on how big your pile is. And the reason why this is really important when you're working a pile is you will eventually, I haven't ever gotten them more than half full, even with an acre farm, because they get too hard to manually turn. But basically you need about a third of a meter, a third of a yard square in order to make a good compost pile that'll break down in about a month or 6 weeks. And so it's nice to have that wall. This is something that I really recommend rather than just having pallets that come apart, because then you've always got that nice stable wall on the one side. This is obviously, I think it's in a riding arena where they're putting horse manure that they probably take away at the end of the day. The reason why this isn't suitable for Lethbridge is because of the open top. So we're going to look at some other ones. And here we're getting into a little bit more of a compost complex, something that we need. First of all, I just want to point out, I don't know where they got these pallets, but they're beautiful. You never see pallets like this anymore. But this is back to that three composter complex. And what happens here is you'll probably have your pile, your working pile right here, and then they move that working pile into the center and they turn it and turn it and turn it until it is fully broken down. And once it's fully composted, they'll put it underneath a roof that will stop leaching of the nutrients that are available in the compost. This is fine in open farms, in places where they want their hens or their ducks, or even larger animals to get in there and dig through the piles. Maybe if they have equipment to move the piles. This is very unsuitable for an urban composter, obviously, because we have raccoons in Lethbridge, we have cats in Lethbridge, magpies, and you're going to have all manner of creatures in your compost if they're open like this. But the roof is a really important one. And here is the Mac Daddy of composters and what I have built my designs on. As you can see, this area is likely a temperate rainforest. You can see the mold or the algae and the wet mud at the bottom. So they've got this composter up off the ground. That is really not required in Lethbridge. And in fact, if you built your composter up off the ground in Lethbridge, it would probably dry out. And instead of composting, it would desiccate, which means you'll lose a lot of your nutrients. So what we want is to not bring it up off the ground. We want to have it right down on the ground because we're never wet enough to soak our compost here. They've also got a single lid, which I find very, very heavy, but it is impermeable. And that's not something we need in Lethbridge either. We generally don't get enough moisture to need an impermeable roof. But if you have materials like old doors and things that are impermeable, that's fine to use, but putting one solid lid on it can be very, very heavy, particularly in our winds. Again, they didn't actually use pallets in this case. These are not pallets. It's built entirely out of probably new wood. But what you can see is there are slats here. There's slat panel right here so that the slats can go down, and you've got that removable wall, right? You've got the lid that can close to keep out excess moisture when you don't want it in there, but most importantly for Lethbridge, to keep the humidity in so that the compost can break down. And this design is actually what my composters are built on. So this is my composting complex in the backyard right now. The original video that you saw was my original complex, and it looked a lot nicer because it had the face plates on it, and we haven't found enough wood, recycled wood, to put the face plates on yet. We like to use recycled wood. This is all broken down from old raised beds and things, and wood that we've moved from property to property and eventually put into use. But as you can see, there's channels here. I like a flip-up lid, but not the entirety of the lid, because again, they get really heavy when they're made of wood. So I'll take you through how to build that and what the best practices are for use. But this is a very very sturdy thing against a fence. I really recommend it. I've had several piles come out of this already. Really like it. It's at the base of a maple tree, so a Manitoba maple, so that tree gets a little bit more nutrients and moisture than maybe it would have before. But just so you know about the legalities of compost in Lethbridge, there are no bylaws governing backyard composters at all. And to be quite frank, it's probably because there aren't any complaints. So the more cognizant you are of your neighbor's needs and your own needs and making sure that you take care of your composter, the less likely we are to be facing governance and rules around backyard composting, just so that you're aware. Placing, again, that composter directly on the ground will limit your moisture loss, which is so important in Lethbridge, and it'll encourage nematodes of a decomposting pile, which is nice, nice for the soil underneath. A hinged roof will increase humidity, as I've said already, during the summer, and it allows snow and rain to assist in decomposition by leaving it open. When you know it's going to snow, you can leave it open if you have leaves stored on one side, and close the side that has food waste in it to stop animals from getting in. And then again, pests can be controlled by putting wire mesh around the outside or chicken wire. I prefer it around the outside. That last really nice composter you saw had it on the inside, but I find that my fork gets stuck in the wire and it breaks down. So it's best to put it around the outside of the composter. So this is just a basic material and tools list for two compartment composter. Whatever you have on hand, you should use. So you can have repurposed wood screws, but when you get your pallets, you want to make sure that they are of similar size. So put them up on their edge and make sure they're the same height, because that just means more maintenance for you. Upcycled wood is great. Never throw your wood away or take it to the dump, especially if you have good chunks, because there's always something you can build of it in the future. Your roofing material can be made out of anything that you like, as long as you can secure it. And then again, your optional items. I like rope handles for pulling it closed and stopping it from slamming back when you open it. Just increases the longevity, saves your fingers. And then of course you're going to need some kind of power tools generally if you're going to build a big composter. But again, you can do it with a handsaw and a screwdriver if you like. So when we assemble a basic composter, basically it's just building a T. So you put your two compost, your two similarly sized pallets together and one in the middle, and you secure that into a nice T. This can be done upright with two people or on the ground with one, and then you add your outside areas and you end up having your basic two compartment structure. From there we move on to roofing, and the reason why is because the roof will stabilize the composter laterally, and you want to make sure that you have a consistent run from the back to the front, because when you're cutting those slats for the front, if you don't have your roof on and stabilizing the structure, it can move and you'll end up making cuts like 3 or 4 times. It's ridiculous. So if we put the roof on first and then flip it back, you only have to do one measurement for your slats, or you should. Your roof should be removable or hinged. I prefer hinged. Removable roof in the wind is just dangerous as far as I'm concerned. And if you're using an impermeable material to cover, consider putting a mild slope on it so that the heavy snow doesn't collapse the structure or cause it to sway. You want to get some longevity out of doing something like this. So we're looking down on our two compartment composter right now, and we're going to add the roof. Now, the first time we built our structure, I did a half roof. So instead of so basically we put an immovable roof halfway up and then just had a small flip top roof from the front. And what I found when I was working my pile was that I hit my head on it constantly. So this time when I built it, I wanted the immovable part of the roof to only be the back third, and the front third was the flip top roof. And basically you can just build it on the ground or on a level surface, and you put your amount of slats. These are, I believe I measured these at, these are 1x6s, and they, you put your cross braces on there, and then you flip it over onto your composter and secure, whoops, too bad. Flip it over onto your composter and put your heavy duty hinges on there. Make sure you buy really good heavy duty hinges for this, because the wood is quite heavy. And then you just can flip it up. And once you have at least one side done, it's better to do it all at once. Then you're ready to move on to the front. So we're going to add the slats on the front. Now you can use any material for your runners for those slats. You can use, oh, I keep doing this. You can use 2x2s, 2x4s, any excess wood, as long as it's long enough to run from about an inch from the top all the way to the bottom of the composter. So you put those runners on to make a channel, and then you cut your slats in between. And I just need to warn you, don't cut these too tight. You want to have at least a ½ inch all the way around your slats, because wood swells, and compost is damp and it gets into the wood swells, and then you can't move the slats at all. And that's a real pain to lever those out. The other thing you can do, whoops, I keep going to the back side. And that looks really quite nice, is that you can put those face plates on as your channel, as your front channel, and then put your 2x2s or your 2x4s behind it to create a channel, and then put your slats in. These are really great, and in the next slide, not just because it looks nicer, if you're into aesthetics and kind of barn style wood structures, kind of vintage looking things, but also because it limits the amount of moisture loss. And like I say, that in Lethbridge, there's nothing more important in gardening than limiting your moisture loss any way you can. So I really recommend doing that. Again, we didn't have the wood at the time to do it, and I'm kind of sad about it, but anyway, this is our composter open. When I took this picture, I didn't even think about the cardboard. I always line my composter with whatever cardboard I've got lying around, just dried out, and now it's kind of being used for leaf storage. And all of our cardboard had dried and then curled up. It's nice and flat again, but it doesn't look very good. Sorry. But you can see the channels here. We use 2s. From all of our slats. And the other reason that I really like slats and rather than doors is that you can flip them. Again, wood does absorb moisture, and so as it absorbs moisture, it's going to curl, and so flipping it over means it'll curl back the other way. You'll just get more longevity out of your composter and out of your reused materials if you are able to flip those walls. Additional items for composting. Phase panels, again, they're not just for aesthetics. They decrease airflow, but they do look good. Chicken wire on the outside, kind of a must-have to keep pretty much everything out of there. The flip top roof with a rope pull is great. So that you can have access only from the front. If you have to go along the side and move things back, you're going to look at crushing a finger here and there. So having some kind of rope handle is a really great idea. Pitchfork, not really optional. You need something to turn, and you can't use a shovel with fresh uncomposted materials. You need something to dig in there for the first few turns. As it breaks down, then you can start using a shovel, but you'll need a little pitchfork for that. And then a compost thermometer is nice, not really needed in town. Hot composting is kind of a different animal. It uses hydrophilic bacteria, and it generally requires, in fact, it always requires manure. If you've ever been to the primate house at the zoo, you know that smell, and it does smell. And I think it's one of the reasons why it's been so difficult to get chickens in town. It's because of that smell, because of dealing with the waste of chickens. And so it's a great process for destroying seeds and roots, but instead, we'll talk about uses. Um, so again, line the inside of your composter with cardboard to insulate it a little bit, increases the humidity. Again, really important in Lethbridge. Also increases the warmth in the winter and decreases the amount of air flowing across it. It's a pallet, so you could line it with wood, which would be fine. If you had a lot of old wood sticking around, you wanted to put it so it has nice smooth walls on the inside, that would be great too. But if you're going cheap like I do, just throw some old cardboard in there, and you can replace it as needed. It takes a lot of moisture to break down cardboard. They last for quite a while. Hot composting, again, I should have taken this out, but people might wonder about it. It requires manure or very high nitrogen items. Even the high nitrogen like grass just won't do the trick for this. It's more suitable for farms. But it is great for all of your food waste, for your green plant material, and for building your own compost at home. The other thing that it's great for is recomposting or finishing composting city compost. I've never had the city compost actually come out smelling like soil. It needs some more breaking down. So it's a great thing to throw in there with your compost, get some more nutrients, get it flowing, get the compost breaking down so you can use it in your garden. Generally, a family of four, a basic urban household, doesn't produce enough food waste for a large composter, but the extra compartments are great for storage, as I said. Never ever add pet waste to your compost. If you're doing this just for perennial beds and you have a single dog, you could probably throw the dog poo in there sometimes, but never for vegetable gardens ever use any kind of pet waste or human waste, obviously, because of the pathogens that it can carry. Pet waste really should go in your black bins. And again, consider throwing that city compost in there. Now, keeping the smell down, basically it's a 2-to-1 thing. You want to have 2-to-1 compost to your green composting materials. So your carbon sources, your 2 is leaves or pine shavings or straw, and keep them in your off-use compartment while you're making a pile. You can get straw at UFA for about $10 a bale. You can use it in your garden as well as a mulch. It will produce hay because it has seeds in it, but straw and wheat. But wheat's really easy to pull, and it's a great composting plant anyway. So every time you add a bucket of food waste in there or a bucket of green waste from your garden in there, add twice the volume of carbon. So just take 2 scoops of straw and throw it in, mix it in a bit, or once a week, just try and figure out eyeball how much food waste you have in there and throw in twice the amount of carbon, mix it in, and the smell will stay down. And just try and keep that ratio at 2-to-1. Just as a note on grass clippings, it's really high in nitrogen, particularly from the spring when it's really green. That's why grass smells so bad when it breaks down and it stays damp. You'll want to make sure you double the amount of carbon when grass clippings go in, and really take a look in the spring when you're mowing. Kentucky blue seeds really when it's really short, and you don't want to be throwing grass seeds into an urban composter because you will get grass pretty much everywhere. If it's really high seed, consider putting it in your green bin. And that's about it. So this was the dream composter. This was our original 3 compost complex. You can see it's kind of got a shorter flip top on the front, and we had weights to hold the flips down in the wind because the wind is crazy. And we since changed it to 2/3 of the roof to be a flip top so that I didn't bang my head. But essentially, they're really neat and tidy, really great resources for your yard. I just wanted to tell you about our Environment Lethbridge Living Cities Yards program. We are just about to complete our Waterwise 101 course that we ran for the first time this year. And going forward, we're planning on taking our Living Cities Yards program to the public. And so if you wanted to find those resources going forward, you just go to our main page at environmentlethbridge.ca. In the ACT, the top drop-down menu, if you click on that, it takes you to this page, which is so great. It talks about what the definition of a living city is and what the nationwide program is, what we're doing in Lethbridge. We have some community projects that we're doing, is our Living Cities in Your Yard project. And if you click on In Your Yard, it takes you to a separate page, which will have most of our information and these recordings as well from these webinars. And that's me. If you need to get in touch with me, these are some other things that you can check out. Right now, these videos are all on our YouTube pile, but I'll link them into our Environment Lethbridge page. Green Year Every Day has a whole bunch of articles in there on yard and garden. Our Wasteless is how to limit your waste in town. And then Green YQL is awesome. It has all of our events and all the events in town. So anytime you're looking for any kind of conservation action or environmental action, most of those events are in there. It's a great resource. Sign up for our newsletter. And thanks very much for coming. If there's any questions, I can take them now. And if not,